Big Brother, the game we have all grown to love, and in my opinion, it's the greatest competition based reality television show ever. Now that we are officially done with season 25 and reindeer games, there's a few things that have me thinking that we are heading towards the end of the whole series. And no, I'm not saying season 25 was the last season, but it's looking like there aren't too many seasons left unless they can find a way to revive the series and get the viewers to actually enjoy watching the show again, and bring in new viewers that will stick around for the whole season. So let's go over some of the problems of the show in its current state, and talk about what changes should be made in order to bring Big Brother back to being one of the most entertaining reality television shows ever. But first, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any more Big Brother content coming your way. Now that you've done that, let's get into it. First things first, you're probably wondering why I said the series is coming to an end soon, and it's simple and obvious. The main reason is because the ratings are hitting rock bottom, and it could have to do with the scheduling this past season, as it seemed like the times changed each week due to football, other shows, or other events. But in my opinion, the show just wasn't good this season, or the past few seasons for that matter. They have gone away from actually entertaining the audience and made the show become almost storyline oriented. This, what I like to call storyline era that we are currently in, goes back to season 23, and one can even argue that season 22 is part of this as well. And these have been arguably the worst 3 to 5 seasons in the history of the show, and ratings show it. Even in a time where writers were on strike and we didn't get any of the new scripted television series, you would think that reality television would take off. But when it comes to Big Brother and the way they handled a monumental season, it's almost a disgrace, as the silver anniversary of the show in totality was a complete flop. Another concerning thing, well to me at least, is Julie's subtle talks about leaving the show. Now she has come out and said before the season that she can't imagine ever leaving the show and she never wants it to end. But when she says things like, "I like to take it one season at a time," and "I think you know when it's time to go," it makes me wonder if she's thinking about leaving the show, or if the show and or network is even willing to bring her back. I'm sure going on other networks like Fox and ABC to promote her memoir, and saying that she was already forced out of one CBS show, The Talk, doesn't exactly make her experience with the network any easier. Now personally, I've never heard anybody even talk about possibilities of leaving a situation if they were sure their spot was secure. One example that happened recently, if you watch sports or specifically pay attention to the NBA, Drew Holiday came out and said he wants to retire and end his career with the Milwaukee Bucks. Then the Bucks ended up trading him literally a day later. So I feel people know when their time is ticking or get whispers of changes, and that's when they make a public last second plea. But who knows? I could be reading too much into it. All I know is, even with all the talks in recent years on social media saying Julie isn't a good host and should be replaced, the show wouldn't be the same without her, whether you like her or not. It's kinda like when you grew up on Bob Barker being the host of Price is Right, then he retires and all of a sudden Drew Carey comes in and takes over. It's just not the same, so hopefully she stays, but if not, I personally feel like the ratings would plummet even more. Now let's get into the things that are ruining or have already ruined the show, and the reasons that the show has become hard to watch, starting with the pandering. When it comes to competitive reality television, you want everything to happen authentically. Recently, it just seems like the production is trying to cater to a specific person or players that they think would provide a good fairy tale ending. They did it in season 24 when Taylor seemed to be a great person to push forward once the people got behind her for being quote unquote bullied and ostracized, so production seemingly warned the house about the outside perception, and then the sympathy got her a win. Then they did it this past season with Sari, but in a different way. It seemed like they were trying to get the Survivor legend to win on CBS, since she went and got wins on different shows and other networks. And since she couldn't get one in her 4 seasons on Survivor, I guess they thought it would be easier on Big Brother. They even went as far as to secretly bring her son into play, and casted Survivor superfans to put around her, with one being specifically a Sari superfan. But that wasn't enough. When America became the only one that slightly hinted at going after Sari, Jared said out of his own mouth that production and the people in the diary room kept pushing him to basically put her up, and kept mentioning her name to him during his HOA train, and he was confused as to why. Ultimately, this pitted Jared against America for really no actual reason to his knowledge, and that lasted until Jared was evicted.
This is what I was telling you earlier. Based off my doctor's appointment, I'm like, why y'all
I got you. Yeah.
talking about that?
Yeah.
Like, it's so much shit to talk about in America. And I'm just like, And that's what made me like, that's what like solidified it for me, where I'm just like, okay, I think I know exactly what's going on.
If they could just let things happen naturally, it would make for much better content. But they think this sympathetic slash storyline route that they're going with will have more people tuning in. And I get it because it works for CBS's main reality show, Survivor. But this is its own brand, and it's not even the same game. So they shouldn't try to copy another show and expect the same results. But to be able to pander, you have to have somebody to pander for. And that somebody seems to be social media. Which brings me to the next problem, and that's the fans on social media. Or should I say, stans. The last thing the producers and showrunners should ever worry about is trying to appease the people on social media. They're not going to agree with most things in a season unless it has a positive impact on the one player they chose to stick by before they even stepped into the house. So the best thing for them is to stay off social media completely during the season. I feel this has specifically impacted this era of trying to be too safe, and honestly, it's getting out of hand no matter how severe a situation is or not. Take the Luke situation for example. Yes, he was completely out of pocket when he used the N word, but if we're being honest, most fans weren't outraged by the usage of that word. If you go back and look, it was mainly Kirsten stans that were fake upset because they thought that if he got kicked out, then it would save Kirsten from going home during that week. Unfortunately for them, that wasn't the case. And unfortunately for Big Brother, they didn't properly handle that situation the best because once Jared was caught admitting to using a slur himself, the R word, Allison Grodner and the rest of the showrunners pushed it under the rug all because Jared was a main part of the season's twist. Now, do I think Jared should have been kicked off the show? No, but yes. Yes, simply because if you already kicked one person off of the show for a slur in the season, then you have to kick the other one off as well. They push this whole no slurs or discrimination will be tolerated policy, and you can't pick and choose which one is worse, especially if you specifically describe all the discriminatory subjects in which they were talking about, which they did, and it included both race and disabilities, along with others, of course. But my real feelings is no, I don't think Jared should have been kicked off, and that's because I also don't think Luke should have been kicked off immediately. The context in which he used that word wasn't in a malicious manner, and it wasn't even towards or about a black person. And of course, some people will say that doesn't matter, and I won't argue anybody else's feelings, but what I think they should have done was make Luke admit his faults in front of the house guests and apologize and give his explanation, and then let them decide as a house, or even just the offended party, and have them vote or come to some sort of agreement on whether he should be kicked out or if he should continue to play the game. Especially since the situation happened right in front of Jared, and he's already said he didn't care. Whether he meant that at the moment or not, we won't know. But even in the diary room, Jared seemed forgiving and didn't want Luke to get the hate that he got. So having a house meeting seems like the most fair way to settle that situation. Then once the Jared situation happened, they could have done the same thing without making it seem like production was picking and choosing favorites based on their goals set out for the season. This would have solved everything and wouldn't have put pressure on production to make a rash decision made strictly on fear of public backlash. Of course, some fans would be upset no matter any approach they took to either of the matters, and they ended up facing backlash anyway. So this is why I think the fans' voices shouldn't matter nearly as much, because the drama and messiness is what's going to bring the viewers in anyway. So you might as well just let it rock and take appropriate approaches to situations. Plus, the fans that get on social media to voice opinions might say they will stop watching, but they aren't the ones that's going anywhere no matter what, because they only tweet to gain attention that they seek every day, and they aren't going to stop watching their daily source of Twitter gossip, so stop falling for their bluff and commit to y'all's product. And with Cameron winning America's favorite player after all that Twitter said about him throughout the season, it should further prove that Twitter doesn't matter and shouldn't affect the actual product as much as it has in recent seasons. Now, the next thing that I think is making the show's ratings go down is the fact that if you watch the live feeds and the episodic show, then you would see that the edits that are made make it seem almost like two completely different shows. This goes back to the authenticity and the pandering. In the show, they were pushing hard to have Suri narrate the show in the diary room, and if you just watch the show, it seems like Suri is making all the moves and calling all the shots. But then on the feeds, you would see her stay cooped up in the comic room for 20 hours of the day and talking about making moves, but never actually being able to successfully pull them off. Or you watch the episodes and never see Bowie Jane, but on the feeds, Bowie would be conversing and in on most of, if not all of the plans made each week, especially in the late game. They will even go the lengths of pulling footage from the first few weeks and use it as fluff to push their agenda rather than show the changes of dynamics in the house from week to week naturally. But the feeds to edit the show problem has been around for years. Like, if you didn't see season 15's feeds, you wouldn't know how involved and social Andy was. And the same goes for Casey in season 20, when she was actually one of the best social players to ever play the game. But the show would only edit her to be this comp beast that just seemed boring. If you want more quote unquote entertainment, then they should do a better job in the casting department and not take it out on the players already casted by not giving them the light they deserve, all because they don't cause the drama they want. Which brings me to the next problem I'll talk about. The casting has been awful the last few years, and it was no different this past season. Outside of Heisem, Izzy, Jag, Matt, Cameron, and Felicia, they could have done a better job. Jared would be a good pick if Sari weren't in the game, and vice versa. Imagine a season with Sari and another Survivor player, and then like 2 past Big Brother players. I wouldn't do a coaches season or have them in teams like season 18 or anything like that, but I would just let them play with 12 newbies and see how it went. That way, if the agenda gets skewed, you can easily make good edits for the show instead of forcing something onto the viewers. But the main problem is the recruiting. Sure, you'll get lucky and get a player like Matt or Joseph from season 24 every so often, but odds are you're going to get a Blue or Red or Kirsten. You select these people that have a fun personality based on a 30-second to 2-minute video and expect them to act that way 24/7. I don't understand putting TikTokers or social media people that have never seen the show or even know what it's really about into the house. It would make sense if they were fans of the show and actually applied, but just to see them on the internet and offer them an application and push them ahead of actual applicants that want to be on the show is ridiculous to me. It tends to have viewers not pleased and makes us want to root against them more times than not, because they usually aren't good and they just show out and go overboard in the diary room. Which now leads me to the last thing I'll say needs to change in this video: the diary room sessions. The diary room used to be a place where players go to explain their game moves, give their thoughts on the game, and even just go there to simply complain about other house guests. Now it just seems like production is telling them what to say and making them change their voices like they are trying to force a soundbite out of every session. And if it's not up to par, they won't even use it in the episode, or they'll make them be more enthusiastic until production is pleased. This leads to corny lines being said in the diary room, and it makes it uncomfortable and extremely hard to watch. If you go back to season 12 and watch Brittany's diary room sessions, you'll see the authentic sound bites that she created from her own personality. Nowadays, it's like they're trying to produce another Brittany and not letting it come naturally. Another problem with the diary room sessions is they tend to lead players on, and basically blow the cover on players they think would make for good drama. Not to harken back on the Jared and America situation, but there's no reason you should be trying to cause drama in the house when they are going to get sick of each other eventually anyway. So what they should do is simply ask their thoughts on specific things that player is going through, and then let them speak on it with their own thoughts. No other player's name should be mentioned at all if there isn't any prior instances or critical involvement between the players themselves. They shouldn't ask Jared about America and things that pertains to Sari unless Jared was involved or at least been told about a situation by Sari. Just let them handle their own matters and the content will come. A soundbite will naturally come. There's no need to force a quirky one-liner from Red or have Jasmine overplay her country accent while saying blindside butterbeans.
Get ready, Pooch. You're about to get served up a big old plate of blindside butterbeans.
All in all, just make the show authentic again. Every past house guest says just be yourself when they give advice on how to make it on the show. But then the show doesn't even allow the people to be themselves when it's time to put them on TV. It doesn't make sense to me, and it's really the easiest thing they can change to make the show watchable again. Also, stop making the house guests repeat the rules over and over again and how games work in the diary room. They make them read this card out loud before the competition to explain what the comp is and how it works, and then all of a sudden they will have the same participating players in the diary room be forced to explain the rules with each of them saying the same exact thing. I'm tired of the OTEV is like a game of musical chairs line that's said almost every year. So stop trying to make the viewers seem like they need to hear a dumbed down explanation every episode to understand what's going on in these simple games.
In this competition, we have to find the medicine bottle containing the names of the 2 evicted house guests described by OTEV and bring it to him. It's kind of like a game of musical chairs.
OTEV is a lot like musical chairs.
It's a whole lot like a game of musical chairs.
If you made it this far into the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed watching and or agree with anything I said, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Also, if you don't want to miss any videos, make sure you turn on the notifications to see exactly when the next video drops. Thanks for watching, and leave a comment and tell me what you would change to make the show better. There's plenty more things I could have said, so a part 2 will probably come sooner or later. But until then, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more Big Brother content, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all.